Good evening, viewers. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Another episode of Guest with Nazir. We are honored that we have our special guest, Emilda Morgans. She's specialist solicitor of wills, probate, and trusts, and she has formerly lectured in Hallam University. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me today. Before we start, could you please tell us about your early days of your education, your experience in uni, and how you joined this profession?
Yes, I have been a solicitor since 1993, and before that, obviously I was studying. I came over to this country in 1986 to do my A-levels, believe it or not. Then I did my degree at Huddersfield University. I did my Law Society finals, as it was called then, at Manchester. And then I did 2 years training in a firm in Lincoln. I came to Sheffield in 1993, got my first qualified job, and I've been in Sheffield ever since, practicing in the area of wills, probate, tax and trusts.
So you mentioned that you came from some other country. So which is your original country of origin?
I was born in Malaysia. I travelled quite a bit during my childhood, followed my parents around, and then went back to Malaysia to finish what would be the high school education. And then I got a scholarship to come and study in this country. So yeah, I'm of Malaysian origin.
So you're a partner in a law firm?
I am. I'm a partner at a firm called Wasco Brown in Sheffield. It's a 7-partner firm. We're based in Attercliffe and Sheffield. We've also got branch offices in Sheffield as well as Barnsley. Thank
you, because today we have requested you, and thank you for coming and joining us in Sheffield Live Television. For our viewers, is it difficult to make a will, or is it a simple process? How to make a will? It's not as difficult as you think. It's something that people do tend to put off because sometimes family situations are awkward, so they don't want to address the issue. But it's not a painful exercise. We're here to help. It's basically, once we talk you through, what your options are. Sometimes you come in with set views of what you want, and that may not be achievable. Either it's not legal, or there's ways that things that you want to do that you can't do. So it's always open up. We open to the discussion, and we try and meet your requirements. And once you've made that decision, we can then prepare the document for you. Obviously, wills are quite a serious document, so it is good to get it right. There are people who will make homemade wills because they think it's easy, or they'll just download something off the internet, which is all acceptable, but you have to be careful. A will has to be valid. There are certain criteria that you have to meet for it to be valid, and if once you've passed away and you discover that the will that you wrote yourself isn't valid, then it obviously creates a lot of problems. So, good advice is always is not a bad thing. Thank you. And when we talk about wills, the second quickest question comes in mind is inheritance tax. Yeah. So, what is the nil rate band, and what changes has been introduced in recent days? Okay, inheritance tax is a tax that is levied on your wealth upon your death. Each individual is allowed to leave a tax-free amount, which, as you correctly refer to as the nil rate band. At the moment, the nil rate band is 325,000. So anything over 325,000, you have to pay 40% tax. But if you are married, husband and wife, if you pass everything to your wife or husband on first death, it doesn't matter what the value is, that will always be tax-free. So then when the second of you passes away, then you've got double the nil rate band, so you'd have 650,000 to leave tax-free. So if your joint estate is more than 650,000, that's when inheritance tax becomes an issue. The recent changes, if you die without leaving a will, your estate is divided under the intestacy rules.
the recent changes, it was quite restrictive, the intestacy rules. So if you died without making a will and you left a husband or wife and you also left children, then your wife would only be entitled to £250,000. The rest would have been split into two. Half would go into trust for for the spouse, and the other half would go to the children. Now that's changed, so you'd still get the £250,000, but instead of the trust, you actually get the other half as well. So the children then get the other half as they would before, but you then get the other half without it being on trust, which makes it a lot easier. And the other change is, before, under the intestacy rules, if you died leaving a husband or wife, but you didn't have any children, then your brothers and sisters or parents, if they were still alive, would get a share of the estate. But now that's all been wiped out. So if you die without leaving children, then the spouse would then get everything from your estate.
Thank you very much. Quite detailed answer.
Sorry.
Viewers, if you have any questions in coming days, you can send us your emails. My email is shown on your screens. You can send us your emails, and in future shows we will try to answer those questions. Keep watching Sheffield Live, and this is your own show, Guest with Nazir. Emilda, when we talk about wills, then we talk about nil rate ban and the taxation. Is there any way that if somebody has enough wealth to do the tax planning?
Yes, obviously if your estate is worth more than £650,000, then you would have to consider the inheritance tax planning, and that's something that we can discuss when you come to meet us to do the wills. The easiest option, and really the only option available, is making gifts during your lifetime. And that can be either directly to your children or family members, or you can put it into a trust for their benefit. And if you survive 7 years from making these gifts, then the value of the gift would fall out of your estate for inheritance tax purposes. If you own a business, then your business might qualify for certain exemptions, so there wouldn't be any inheritance tax to pay on those assets, and so you could possibly do some planning with your business assets as well. And really the main thing is making gifts, making sure that obviously you've got enough to live on, and if you've got any surplus cash or surplus investments, then that would be the asset that you would give away.
Thank you, quite detailed answer. The next question is, it's a little proposition. If A dies and he leaves a spouse, a son and a daughter, and his estate consists upon house worth of £150,000 and £50,000 cash. So how it will be divided if there is no will?
As I said before, under the intestacy rules, if you leave a wife or husband and you've got children, then because in this case the house is worth, what did you say, 150,000?
150,000.
And the cash is 50,000, so in total it's 200,000. Then the wife would get everything. If it was more than that, if say the house was 150,000 and he had 300,000 cash, then the wife would get 250,000, which would leave the balance to be shared between the children and the wife, half and half.
Thank you. When people talk about the wills, at the same time they talk about the trusts. So is there any particular benefits when somebody is adding a trust within the will?
Yes, you can add a trust in the will, and that really is how you want to protect the asset or the beneficiary that you are making under the will, because sometimes you don't want to give a large sum of money maybe to an individual because they have learning difficulties, they might have a disability where they are on benefits, so having all the money in their hands might not be a sensible thing to do. So you would put it into a trust so that the trustees would look after this money and it can be drip fed to that particular beneficiary. Or you could have a trust where if you are in a second marriage or third marriage, and you have children from your first marriage. So you could leave money on trust so that your current husband or wife can benefit from that trust during their lifetime. But then on their death, that money would then go to your children rather than outright to your husband or wife, and then if they remarry, it would go to their children and all sorts of things. So that would be another reason why you would put it on trust, and so it would be looked after by the trustees.
Thank you, quite detailed answer. The next question is, if somebody wants to make an Islamic will, what are the contents of Islamic will and how it's different from an English will?
Okay, this is quite a fairly complex area, and it's a question that we are normally asked when we are dealing with Muslim clients. Now, the will regime in this country, obviously, as I said earlier, there are certain criteria to make it valid, and that will always be how the English wills will be considered. So, Islamic wills have to conform to the English laws. And it can be quite complicated, as I say, under the Sharia law. There are various percentages on who gets what and what happens, and it's quite detailed. So instead of putting that into an English will or a normal will, because that could be quite complex, we always recommend that you do a discretionary trust will. So basically, that will then be valid under the English rules, provided all the other criteria are set, and you have a discretionary trust will, which just means all your assets go into this trust. You then support that with what we call a letter of wishes. The letter of wishes will set out how you want to do things, who you want to appoint as your trustees, and also there's reference to if there are any disputes, you might want to name, a certain imam who would then try and arbitrate if there's any issues. You can put things about your burial. You can put things like making sure all your liabilities and all your responsibilities are paid first, excuse me, and then how you want the estate to be distributed. So we always recommend that it's done through a discretionary trust will and a letter of wishes, rather than it being so prescriptive.
So it means in that discretionary will, there will be a lot of discretion with the executors, and obviously they will also follow the letter of wishes.
Yes, I mean the letter of wishes is a guidance, obviously, to the trustees, and it is an expression of your wish. They are, to a certain extent, bound to follow your wishes, but because it's a discretionary trust, it is, as you say, up to their discretion on whether they follow those wishes, and if it's not practical, then they can't be found responsible for not following your wishes if in fact what you're putting in your letter of wishes is not is not practical. And I know that might be slightly difficult under Sharia law, because as far as I understand it, if your trustees are tasked to do something, you are bound to do that. And I know that there may be difficulty that if the trustees don't follow the discretion, they're not following, what you've asked to do under Sharia law. So there may be a bit of a dispute there. So the choice of trustees, obviously, is very important. And I always advise that you don't perhaps include your children or your family members as trustees, because they can turn around and say, under English law, I don't have to follow these rules. I can follow my discretion and I will distribute it how I want to. Whereas if you have somebody independent who is not a beneficiary of the will, then it's not as easy for them to have a conflict of interest.
So it means it's important that independent trustees is the best option.
I would recommend that you have independent trustees, yeah.
Thank you very much. I hope the viewers have got the answer. The next question is, which is I think is very important for our viewers also, that if somebody has a disabled child, how the parents can make their wills and how they can make sure that in their will that child is protected and has future protection.
Okay, again, a trust would be the best way to do this. And again, we would recommend some sort of discretionary trust so that that disabled child is the main beneficiary. And you would then follow that up with a letter of wishes and say that the money is mainly used for that particular child, you know, for that child's benefit if they want a new wheelchair or if they need, you know, new furniture or however you want the money to be used, or take them on holiday and things like that. But the important thing is that because it's in a trust, that child will still be entitled to be looked after and have their benefits and be looked after wherever they are. But they've got this trust money on the side to be able to supplement whatever it is that they need.
Thank you very much. Because we have discussed a lot of laws, so it's better we should come for the lighter subject.
Okay.
So what is the best moment of your life?
Oh gosh, best moment of my life probably when my son was born. That was a good time, 16 years ago. And recently I've just got married, so that was a good moment of my life, is, you know, getting married and having my family and friends around me and having a good day.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And what is your favorite food?
Favorite food? I will have to be biased and say it's a Malaysian dish, obviously. Malaysian food is very tasty, and there is a dish in Malaysia called nasi lemak, which is translated as coconut rice.
I see. So
it's coconut rice, and you always have it with chilied fish or chilied prawns or something with chilies. Malaysian food is quite, you know, full of chilies, so I would say that.
Thank you. And your favorite place?
My favorite place? What, country or
country
just anywhere?
To visit, yes.
A little island in the Maldives, any island in the Maldives, I think it would be my favorite place, because it's always quiet and tranquil and very peaceful.
Thank you. And who's your favorite player?
Player, as in what?
In any sports?
Oh, any sport? I quite enjoy golf. I like watching golf. So I would probably say it would be a golfer. I can't quite think whether it might be, at the moment, Rory McIlroy is obviously a good player. So I'll say him.
Thank you. And in terms of your hobbies, what interests you have? Apart from, obviously, you're a very busy lawyer. Apart from that, what are your other hobbies? So,
I try to play golf when I've got time and when the weather's not bad. But I also like to paint. I have been known to paint a few canvases and with oil paintings and some watercolors as well.
So, do you paint buildings? Or you do abstract? Which mode do you like?
Slightly abstract, but I like painting things like a field of poppies, for example, but maybe in a slightly abstract way, or just abstract colours. It really depends. I tend to paint for friends who ask me to, if they are decorating a house and they want something in blue and red or something like that, then, you know, I will do their colour scheme depending on what they want.
Have you ever tried fusion of watercolor and with other mode of the colouring?
No, I'm not that brave. It's only a hobby.
This was episode of Guest with Nazir, and I hope you have enjoyed this discussion. Keep watching Sheffield Live. Thank you very much, Emilda. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.